So I wanted just some general guidelines. I've tried to emphasize this whole month, and so I want to leave with some sense of that being an imprint on the month. Two things. One is to keep the view of where you're going. It gets very circumscribed very quickly as we mull over our own unique and particular situation and drama. We feel like the whole world is sort of going this way, and our drama is sort of central stage, and we can get lost in this sort of central casting character and issue of me and all the difficulties I might have. Now, I want you to stay within yourself. That's been the working description of how to do it, but also to keep the view that there's more to it than the struggles that we are engaged in, and to look out and to be able to see that there's something else here besides that struggle. And you can just keep it as a very simple continuum in yourself, because it really does take you completely through the entire pathway of spiritual growth, and that's to go from struggle to the end of struggle. So if I'm struggling, don't ask how do I get out of it, or don't ask someone else what I should do, but go into yourself. Stay within your own sense of embodiment, and release the tensions that are associated with that struggle. And if you have to go to therapy to do that, do that. Reach out in all forms of extended aid in order to work so that we understand why we struggle. But never lose the fact that there's an end to struggle. And the quickest way to get through struggle is to apply the means that is associated with that ends. If you struggle with your struggle, that's going back the wrong way in the continuum. If you just if you're just bear witness to your struggle, that's the quickest way not to struggle, because the bearing witness adds no more pain to your struggle. And so it's the quickest way through the continuum. And that's just a sort of a self-guiding mechanism we can always use. When we reach out and say, what should I be doing? We are completely skewed away from that continuum. We are lost. And unfortunately, many of us don't feel a sense of embodied strength to be able to know which way to move. So much of what we have to do early on is just get that sense of placement, of field perspective in ourselves. And then we're moving from and on. And then the struggle doesn't end with psychological issues. That's a very superficial, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way, but it's not the end of struggle. Just to resolve one's psychological issues is not the full message of the end of struggle. The full message is the release of the tension that divides us, is moving into non-separation. And you can feel the tension. There will always be tension as long as we hold the view of separation. And that tension is struggle. So the ultimate release of struggle is the release of that view. So don't stop with just a psychological, well-presented profile, but move this thing right on through. Right on through. And no matter how empowered or important or popular a teacher may be, never lose your own sense of what your own struggle is and what you need to work on. Anytime you move to a should, you are so far away from the spiritual path you can barely be seen. Stay within yourself. Now, just a second thing about this. As you move outside, do not expect to be mindful. It'll just disappoint you. It'll become more of a pain than a pleasure. The reason is because you won't be able to do it. And you'll think, where's my practice? Where's my practice? Well, your practice is being configured by what you want out of life. And if you get caught up in the entertaining and attractive issues of life, then your sense of being embodied and being present is going to be secondary to those issues of entertainment and pleasure and all of that. So instead of trying to crack through all of that pleasure seeking by being mindful in some kind of self-righteous way, explore what it is that keeps you entertained and what the value you're getting out of entertainment. Because there's a value and limitation to everything. And unless we see its complete picture, it never comes to an end. We just keep playing that card because we want to squeeze a little more out of it. So instead of begrudging that you're not mindful, explore the reasons that you've given your mindfulness away to whatever is enticing you as your intention in that moment. Your energy will follow intention. That's the way it does. And once the energy no longer plays itself out in terms of secondary gains, such as self-accomplishment and self-importance and ambition and acquisition and all of that, then that intention, the energy that was used within those secondary gains will automatically come back and renew and refurbish the original intention, which is to end suffering. In fact, you can see that all those secondary gains and all the ways that we try to access life culturally is struggle. So if we keep the modulation, if we keep the continuum as from struggle to the end of struggle, and the entertaining issues and all the ways we try to please and grow and be popular and be seen and be liked and all of that is an enormous struggle, you can see where you have to go to end struggle. Now that's much better, much saner than trying to keep a continuous mindfulness. Because what you'll be doing within your mindful moments, if you have some, is bringing yourself along with that mindfulness. And you'll feel as if your practice is being self-accomplished, that it's you're doing it. And that will be a tremendous obstruction to your practice at some point. And many people never get over that because they love the sense of self-empowered practice. There's no such thing as self-empowered practice. This is not your doing. And to keep that view so that we at some point allow ourselves to recognize the intrinsic awareness that is here, that needs no further effort to procure because it's available when we drop the resistance we have to it, and when we drop the sense of self-empowered awareness, the sense that I am doing it. This is the turnaround. This is the paradigm shift. It changes everything. And then remember last night, active discernment. That you, even though we may not recognize it at the time, we are being accompanied by the formless. And there's a beautiful synchronicity, symmetry, on how the formless communicates with the form and the residual sense of me. Even as I'm releasing the need to be me, we allow that communication between the form and the formlessness to become clearer and more distinct within us. We then know our heart's way. We feel the urge towards completion to a greater extent. That's form communicating, formlessness communicating with form. We feel the compelling need to release the tensions of life. The formless communicates with us through questions, through probing, through looking. So when form gets caught within itself, when it gets kind of caught in the swirl, the loop of reactivity, and then formlessness invites a question into that. What's going on here? What's happening? To allow that question to come forth is to disempower yourself and to empower the formless attention necessary to resolve. You, I, do not resolve these issues. Formlessness resolves these issues by attention, by just seeing. And the question invites a deeper journey than a passive discernment, which is just the beautiful non-doing of presence. So we need both. We need both the active and the passive expression of the formless to move forever in our life. And it's all generated when we're interested. Interest is another communicated attribute from the formless to the form. When we're interested, depending upon what we're interested in, it can just be a mental interest, like, who's that nice-looking person over there? That's a mental interest. But if it's a heart interest, if it's a formless related interest, it's an interest in what obstructs us, what's going on inside of us. That the sense of self does not want to know that. It wants to move on. It wants to excuse or blame or get over that problem. It doesn't want to be introspective. So if there's an introspection, you know it's not coming from you. And so then it just starts guiding us deeper. And that's what I mean by being within ourselves. Those questions arise within us. Those are not other induced questions. That's not a question that some teacher gives you. The question, who am I, or what is this, are being communicated from the formless presence to the form of the structure. So we go deeper into quiet. And it is not dependable or conditioned upon any environment. Never think that. If you do, you are conditioned, essentially dead in your spiritual work. When you're not in this environment, you're dead. Has nothing to do with environment. Has nothing to do with conditions. Conditions, dependence upon conditions, is struggle. But we're not going towards struggle. Now we can walk this thing. So when you leave here, you don't look back. Why would you look back? And you just... Okay.